my transactional cost in answering phone calls has dropped 90%, right?
Wow.
Because the main phone call is, what's the status of my part, right? And so, having that as a competitive differentiator and as a pitch too, when customers come and we give them the tour of the plant, of course, the tour sells the Veterans Medal all the time, is that customer portal. They all say the same thing. Really? I can see where my parts are. And it's great. And it holds us accountable.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining the Shop Talk podcast here with Andrew Kossowski. So here we have this show is for those that have dedicated their livelihood to the craft of manufacturing. And today we have on Andrew Kossowski from Veterans Medal down in Florida. And Andrew, just to start it off here with on your side, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in the metal finishing industry.
Sure. Thanks, Dean, for having me. So I don't know if you know this, because we know each other for a while now. I'm the first American born in my family. So my father's from Warsaw, Poland, and my mother's from Havana, Cuba. And they came to this country with a suitcase in their hand and provided their two children an education, which of course later led me to have my first adult job in the United States Air Force.
Oh, wow.
Where I focused mainly on manufacturing quality. That was my focus area. I was part of the initial team for the C-17 program. I actually got to see the first 6 C-17s built from the first rivet through the first flight, which is a great experience. And back then it was called McDonnell Douglas before Boeing bought them out. So after that, something in the late 90s, something called Y2K was coming out. and people were worried about it. And I thought I was going to stay in aerospace, but then I got hired in telco, and that started another 2-decade career in telecommunications, where I eventually became the CIO for the third largest telco in the world in Airtel Africa. And after that, I could have retired or not retired. Well, I was still in my mid to late 50s. And I said, I don't want to retire yet. I got too much energy still, but I want to go back to manufacturing, right? I love manufacturing. I love what I did when I was in the Air Force and quality and everything else. So I started hunting for a manufacturing company in Florida, because that's where I wanted to retire. And there was 8 companies vetted, and did some due diligence. And I found this coating company, been around for 27 years. And they had a great loyal following, but they were lacking a few things like quality and certifications, and they were completely analog, completely manual. And so I said, I see an opportunity there for a project, right? For something for me to sink my teeth into. And so that's what got me into metal finishing. I learned a lot about it, especially when I was doing the Joint Stars program with corrosion control, because we had bought 707 cattle haulers from Kuwait. And so we had to retrofit them, and they were just totally corroded. And so I learned about corrosion control and things like that in the Air Force. So I wanted to go back to, because I was passionate about it. I loved manufacturing. And so I ended up doing this book of business purchase back in September of 2020.
Wow. Real quick, Andrew, I did not know that your parents were immigrated here. That's amazing. I feel like that's a common story for like entrepreneurs, is to have either first gen or second gen. But real quick, is there any big difference from the McDonnell Douglas days to manufacturing today, from your perspective, in terms of back in the Y2K era versus here in 2026?
Well, yeah, I mean, we didn't have AI, we didn't have digital systems. I mean, it was 100% paper. I remember I had an office in the McDonnell Douglas plant. There were papers stacked to the ceiling, right? Everywhere, traveler cards everywhere. I mean, they had a great system and it worked, but it would take, a long time to manufacture one aircraft. But they had a great production line going on, but it was paper intensive, right? Very digital intensive. And I would do the quality reviews for the contractual reviews for the Air Force, form, fin, and function reviews. And many times, despite their endless processes that they had, I would always find mistakes, right? Errors in design, errors in engineering, errors in installation, errors in functionality, or the human factor part of it was not known as well. So, it was very paper driven. So I think that was the biggest difference between then and now.
Wow, amazing. Now, give us a little bit more on the story behind Veterans Metal and where the company is standing today. Because I know you
Sure.
started in
So, yeah.
2020, actually.
So when I got the company, 5,000 square feet, it was a hole in the wall facility, no air conditioning, no ventilation. All 54 tanks were different sizes. They were all bought from auction.
Oh, wow, nice.
It was all electric heaters. Everything was analog, right? Everything was analog. There was nothing connected. And of course, the funny part about it was at the end of the day, and there was only 4 employees, by the way, in this business at the time. Um, at the end of the day is when they would fill out their traveler cards. So you can imagine, they're doing their processes, and then they would fill in the cards. Oh yeah, I remember what I did. No, that's not how it really works. And they were doing about 25,000 parts a month. So their
Wow.
revenue was, low six figures, not much, but it was enough to make the owner happy, and that was great. But I saw a big opportunity. Then fast forward, I bought it in 2020, and then I immediately initiated what I call the digital transformation plan. And so now we're in uh, as of August of 23, we're in a 20,000 square foot brand new building, fully air conditioned, fully digital. We only print one thing, QR codes. That's all we print. And everybody's got an iPad, or there's a scanner on the production lines. And it's environmentally perfect for the employees, air ventilation systems, very wonderful place to actually come to work. And at the end of the day, when you go home, you're not exhausted, right? Because we have automated systems, lift systems. And of course, in the new facility, we have all these, we have NACAP merit certifications. We didn't have that. My predecessor didn't have that. We have
Oh,
all
really?
these aerospace accreditations, certified Lockheed, Sikorsky, L3 Harris, Raytheon. We keep going with
Wow.
those, right? So none of those things existed. And so we didn't just change equipment. What we did is we changed a mindset, right? And that mindset still exists today in many of my fellow competitors because change is hard. But unfortunately, if you want to keep up, you've got to be able to embrace change.
Yeah. So the mindset, it seems like the culture of Veterans Metal. That's one thing I was talking to a customer of ours. And a lot of metal finishing sometimes competes locally because the cost of freight it can be pretty high.
Yep.
So it's like local little markets. And one thing that a different customer of ours said here in Minnesota is like, hey, they can copy our process and they can copy our specs, but they can never copy our culture. Like they can never, right? Like that is like
Yeah,
one thing that is like
you're
built over
absolutely
time.
absolutely right, Dean. I've invited my competitors to my
Mm.
plant. I've given them tours of the plant.
Oh wow.
If they can win business, great. Then we can figure out, what are they doing that we're not doing, right? It's just
Mhm.
there's just, and I think I told you this before that there is so much work available. There's just not enough companies to fulfill the demand. I mean, when you hear about lead times of some of my competitors, that are 8 to 12 week lead times, compared to us, our dock time is like I think 3.7 days or something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
3.7 days, everything turns.
yeah, everything turns. And so that's the average. And of course, we do 2 dozen different processes here. So some are longer than the others, like the ones that are multiple process. We have anodize, masking, chem film, or powder coating or paintings like that. Multi-process type jobs may take a little longer, but the dock time, even for those, are super, super short, right? And it all has to do with, the technology and the equipment you're using, but also the people. Are the people in tune with what are the expectations, and that's an important part of that formula.
Yeah. So the people are a huge part of that. There's the equipment, there's the it goes down to the HVAC, there's the
Yes,
technology, there's the people. I think I heard a story you flying in employees from out of state just to interview them.
yes.
So I guess the culture that it seems like is that your moat? Would you say in terms of like your most defensible tool to scale Veterans Metal is like, hey, it's our culture first, and
So a lot of people on growth focus on sales, right? But
yeah,
sales for me, growth is a byproduct of other levers. So
mm,
one of those levers has to do with quality. So we don't focus on customers that are price conscious, right? That are only focused about the price. We focus on attracting customers that are focused on quality. and they understand that quality has a price. And so we may be a little more expensive than our competitors, but in that bundling of what you get in that price is a lot more than what you get in my competition. So quality is a lever for growth. Another lever for growth is people. You were talking about when we brought people from out of state. I have brought people from out of state, hired people, hire slowly, fire fast, right, is the old saying. And so, we've been in business since 2020, and 47 people did not make the cut. So we have a 90-day probationary period. We immediately evaluate on day one, going through the process, and either they're part of the culture or they're not, right? And so we go ahead and focus on that period, because if you're not going to have that mindset of Veterans Metal, I'll get to that in a little bit later, then you're not going to make the cut, right? The other thing is process, right? And then we focus on constantly. There isn't a week thing that doesn't go by that there isn't some sort of a process improvement. Every week there's at least one, all right? And many times it's 3 or 4 in a week, right? And also that contribution is by all the employees, not just the leadership team or myself or my production manager or GM. Everybody contributes to improvement. And so, because they understand what the mindset is to be efficient, is to provide that value-added services to our customers. So process compounds daily. And then technology, of course. And, one of the things that we use, of course, is Steelhead. My predecessor was using these traveler cards, and I look back and I laugh at it, thinking what it entailed to fill out those traveler cards and how much they all look the same, right? and so now we use a digital system that captures real information, right? It's not made up information, and it also helps us monitor quality control. So if something is out of spec, we use Steelhead to produce our reports. For example, I'll use Sonar, which is the AI component in Steelhead, that ask questions about, how do we do on anodizing or paint or chem film, and it'll answer those questions, right, for me. And it gives me the data about, who ran that part, how long did it take, why did it not fulfill parameters, and then we focus on the training. So technology, having this paperless process, provides real-time visibility, right? And I'll give you an example as from a technology perspective, as a competitive differentiator, also related to Steelhead. We use some other softwares. We use something different for our chemical titrations, and then we use something different for other things. But specifically, overall, 90% of what we do is we use Steelhead for our ERP system, is the customer portal. And I remember talking to Steelhead in 2021 and saying, hey, I need a Pizza Hut application from my customers. I want them to know where their part is in the baking process, where it is in my plant. My competitors dread the idea of disclosing that information, but they don't realize that the customers love it. My transactional cost in answering phone calls has dropped 90%, right?
Wow.
Because the main phone call is, what's the status of my part, right? And so, having that as a competitive differentiator and as a pitch too, when customers come and we give them the tour of the plant, of course, the tour sells the Veterans Metal all the time, is that customer portal. They all say the same thing. Really? I can see where my parts are. And it's great. And it holds us accountable. We had one little part, Neen, that was in the shelving unit that came in, and it was a small box, but it was behind one of the shelves, and we kind of didn't see it. Customers said, why is my parts still in the receiving? And then we realized we didn't see it. It was still there on the shelf because it was like 1 by 1 inch box. I mean, it was really, but it holds us accountable as well, right? And so I love the fact. So technology is another lever, but then culture is all 4 of those together, right? So growth wasn't our goal. Excellence was our goal, right? And so growth was a byproduct of that excellence, and that's what's allowed us to be successful over the last 5 years.
Wow, that's amazing. And one thing I say with the customer portal is like manufacturing. It's a team game, right? If you're building 737s, it's not just Boeing, right? There's an army of companies behind Boeing, and they all need each other to perform on time with good quality. And I think the portal is one thing of like, it's like, hey, Veterans Metal, we're not just a transactional business. Like, we're going to bring you in and be partners. Because the reality is you need your customers to be successful so you can keep sending more work. They need you to be successful so you can deliver on time with quality. And the portal is like, hey, it's like I'm going to share with you where our parts are. I trust you guys. You guys trust
Yeah.
us. And then I think that helps. Like, and in my opinion, I've seen a lot of shops, Andrew, on many levels of the supply chain, and a lot of times people don't know where the parts are in their own plant.
No, they don't.
So
They
it's
don't.
like if they can outsource it to Veterans Metal and they actually like, oh, I know exactly where it is at Veterans, but I don't even know where it is when it's here, right? So now it's like Veterans Metal, it's like, a cut above
Yeah.
even their own operations, and now that should even just boost more and more of your business.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, as a comparison, my predecessor had a table that contained both incoming and outgoing parts on the same table. And right away, that that's going to be a problem. How
Yeah.
many times parts got picked up that were never even touched, or
Oh,
parts got picked up that belonged to other customers? I mean, it was just crazy. And having technology support your culture is your environment is critically important, and that's where we really leveraged Steelhead. And
yep.
and then speaking of building cultures, and I was mentioning this in the beginning, every team member knows why we exist, right? So when we actually have, I don't know, Dean, I don't think I've told you this before. We have three subcultures here to
Mm.
actually complement the overall culture. Why do we exist? We exist to add value to the end customer. So a lot of the parts we do is for the military. I have a photograph of my son. That's my son up here. He's in the Army.
Oh, awesome.
And we actually have a picture of him holding a part that we anodized, right? Which is really cool, right? But it brings it home. So people understand that we are doing this for a purpose. So there's a mission-driven purpose. So we want those military parts to succeed, right? And so that's critically important. We also frequently go to fabrication shops, our customer shops, and we see them put the components together, the parts that we coded, and see the end product and see it function, right? And so they know why we exist. There is a purpose, a very important purpose, very important, but it could also be non-military. So we'll do motorcycle parts and we'll see them put the motorcycle parts together. And what happens? That company is generating revenue, they're hiring people, they're contributing to the community, they're contributing to the economy. So again, every team member knows why we exist. So that's at a team level. Then we have a leadership team culture as well. And what do we have in that culture? Well, we focus on metrics. We focus on measuring things, right? We focus on efficiency, cost. We focus on hitting targets, productivity rates. There's a slew of things that the leadership team is responsible for. Titrations, chemical titrations, our testing that we do. So all these things are part of the leadership team culture, and they work collaboratively together to achieve those targets. And then we have what I call the C-suite or executive team culture. And we actually have, I'm the CEO, we have a CFO as well, and we have a chief administration officer, and then the GM is part of that team as well. We have an actual financial governance committee. So we focus on two things in that committee. We focus on hiring and spending, right? So when I say hiring, I don't mean we do the interview stuff. We let the leadership team do the interviews, but we focus on the cost that's added to hiring. Is that going to provide growth to the company if we hire this person, right? And then there's the CapEx or OpEx expenditures, right? So these sometimes are unforeseen things that could come up, or it could be a value-added item. We just not too long ago bought a new remote programmable unit for our rectifiers. So now we can do really high tolerant parts, especially in hydraulic systems, because they deal with 3,000 to 4,000 psi. You want really tight tolerances there. So with that programmable unit, it controls the ramp rates, it controls the duration, the ramp down. It really tightly controls things, because a manual controller for the rectifier is not as efficient or as tolerant dependent as a programmable unit. So those are examples. So we have three different cultures that all complement each other in the overarching culture. And then the employees, lastly, we want to also focus on the value we see in our employees. So we have a beautiful, clean facility. One thing the customer always says when they walk in, wow, this is so clean. They look around and say, wow, I don't smell anything, right? Oh, wow, it's 95 outside here in Florida, but it's 75 here inside the plant. So again, why do we do that? We want the employees to know we're investing in their comfort and in their facility, So when they come to work, they're not leaving exhausted at the end of the day, because what does exhaustion breed? It breeds errors, right? And so we want them to feel comfortable. So they know that we're investing in them as well. In return, they're providing that, yeah, we're going to get it done mindset. And that's how we build that culture here. So it's a combination of things that builds the overarching culture as well.
Wow. Wow. And now, so you mentioned you have the quality, the people, the process, the technology, the excellence is the overarching goal. And now what has, and the company has scaled, and I think you mentioned like, low six figures in 2020 or 2023.
Yeah, they were doing 25,000 parts a month. We're doing over 300,000 parts a month now.
Wow.
And we have the capacity to do a few million. so
Wow.
and we don't stop growing. I mean, we're growing every month. Every month is what we call best month ever, right? And so because it just every month compounds on the previous month, and we've been growing. We haven't had a down month since we started. So every month has been a growth month. The rate of that growth sometimes changes. So I think election year 2020, was it late 2024? Yeah. So that just late 2024, early 2025, things slowed down, but we're still growing. But then it's popped back up again. So for the last 6 months, we've been just exponentially growing, double-digit growth, by the way. And so, which is fantastic.
Wow. And now as this company has seen this growth, what have been the challenges that have come with scaling the business?
So it's in two parts. So first of all, when I kicked off the transformation project, the first 2 to 3 years, I was doing a lot of everything, right? As an owner, right? But I didn't do that because I wanted to micromanage or I had some pride of ownership issues. I did that because I wanted to master everything in my business.
Correct.
And that way, if a problem came up, I was able to contribute to a solution, right? And so, but I knew there'd be a time where I'd have to let go. And let go is probably one of the biggest challenges for an owner to delegate, right? And so, and then of course, building the leadership team, that's a challenge as well. You want to have a leadership team. And in my case, we have a general manager, we have a chemical engineer, we have a production manager, we have an office manager. They all have their own lanes, their own specialty. And then, building their experience and training them in their lanes where they still grow themselves but complement each other is a bit of a challenge as well, right? And you want to find the right person with the right frame of mind. A lot of companies, employees, they see all these products coming in and they think, oh wow, they're making so much money, but they don't realize that the balance sheet has two sides, right? Right? It's income and expenses, right? And so, but we ensure that the employees understand that, right? And the employees realize that you got to spend money to make the money. And so it's not all about making money. We have to spend. And so, and they realize that, and we spend it on them as well. We invest in them. We invest in their training. We invest in other activities, supporting local nonprofit organizations or them going to events. Annually, we go every year to a hockey game here in Tampa Bay. And,
oh, wow.
The whole team gets to go, but I don't go. I let them. I do that so they don't feel uncomfortable with the owner being there, right? So those are the kind of things that so scaling challenges, has to be probably just delegation and letting go, and then keeping the culture consistent is probably the number one challenge. So the biggest risk isn't growing too fast. The biggest risk is if your culture is not keeping up with your growth, right? Because your growth creates inflection points. And inflection points could mean your consumption rates suddenly go up because you're doing more work. And so that culture about, okay, we used to do purchase orders for sulfuric acid, once every X number of days. Now we have to adjust for that, right? So people need to understand that as we grow, our culture needs to grow, our mindset needs to grow. Quality is important. Just because we have more work doesn't mean we have to inspect less, right? We have to actually inspect more. So, and then also the other mindset that people forget, it says, oh, we have an error rate, let's say it's just 1 out of 1,000 parts are bad. If you suddenly are doing 2,000 parts and you have 2 errors, it didn't mean your errors went up 100%. You're still maintaining the same rate, right? And so understanding that growth, you're going to have this perception that, oh, I'm making more mistakes. what you really need to measure is what is that rate proportional to the growth, right? So then you can take it, oh, wait a minute, I can take a deep breath. I'm not doing as bad as I thought, right? So you want to make sure that as you're growing, your culture, your mindset is also in pace with your growth.
Agreed. I've seen that firsthand here at Steelhead too. We've grown a little bit over the last 4 or 5 years as well,
Yeah.
and maintaining that culture is, I'd say, existential to our success long term.
Yeah.
Now, how do you say on the Steelhead side? How has Steelhead helped support your team's growth and your day-to-day operations?
Yeah, I would say that before Steelhead, information chased people. Now people are chasing information, right? Because why? That information is there, right? And then they're acting on that information. So, before on a pure paper side equation, the information was there, but then you had to consolidate it, try to figure it out into some sort of a rate, transfer it to an Excel spreadsheet, all this crazy time consuming things that provided usually real little value. And now we're chasing information because that information we know exists. And I really like the fact that we're able to use Sonar, for example. I used to write, the SQL statements to generate reports. The fact I don't have to do that is phenomenal. And that my team also are able to do that as well without my intervention. I have a master's in computer science, so I could write these blindfolded, but I don't want to have to do that. I want to focus on growth, right? That's my focus on how to build relationships, and not write reports. And so the team can do that themselves. So we love the fact that we have this digital technology. The other thing is we were the first in the country, and I know you know this, to use Steelhead for our NADCAP reporting output, right? So we're the first in the country to use Steelhead. Number one.
The pioneers.
Yes. And it was great because, when the auditor came, he looked at it and he's like, okay, he didn't know what to do, right? Because it was there, right? It showed the parameters, what our specs were, what the real-time results were, and the fact that we were capturing this information. I mean, it just blew him away, right? And every auditor that we've been doing, I think that this is our third audit with Steelhead, says the same thing. It says, man, you guys really have your act together, right? And they love this digital output. So but it didn't make us, I just want to make clear, Steelhead didn't make us a better company. It allowed us to become the company we wanted to be, right? That's how I view the utilization of Steelhead, right? And so we want to be a certain type of company. We want to excel in everything we can excel in. And Steelhead gives us that ability to do that.
I would agree. That's extremely well said. On the auditors saying you guys have your act together, I'm assuming your customers are also saying the same thing when they see it. Like, wow, this is
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
We do both NADCAP required work and non-NADCAP as well. So, but we apply the digital system to everything. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's NADCAP or not. It doesn't matter because we do. We're not required to do this, but we do titrations multiple times a day, right? So it's not required, but we do it, and we use Steelhead to support that function, right? And so we are able to monitor our temperatures and our rates and our throughput. Why is it that Tommy is taking X number of minutes to run a certain job where Billy can do it in half the time? We get that information from Steelhead, right? It's all about efficiency. So the fact that we're able to do that, technology needs to be leveraged, and you have to realize that technology. Some people are afraid of it, but you shouldn't be afraid. You should embrace it. You don't have to do big bang. You can do a little piece at a time, and if that's your concern. But my suggestion would be to embrace technology, because if you're not going to do it, you're going to be left behind. I mean, that's just a fact. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Now, Andrew, this has been pretty amazing. Now, imagine you could go back in time, Andrew, and I think there's a lot of people out there right now, especially in the world or in America, that really want to, almost pursue the American dream and start a factory and start building parts, and because manufacturing is having, I would say, there, like you mentioned, there's way more work out there than people imagine, and with the data centers, with the military defense, there's like it feels unbounded. But say you could go back and to 2020 Andrew Kossowski, or to some young entrepreneur looking to start a plant or start a shop. What would your advice be to someone when it comes to building a strong culture and building a manufacturing business today?
Yeah, I think there's a few things here. So you don't want to just arbitrarily copy somebody else's culture. Decide what your mission is going to be, right? And then build your culture for that mission, right? There's a lot of little things that we just discussed here earlier that could help in that process, but decide what your mission is going to be and then build your culture on the mission. The other thing is you want to invest in people before equipment. All right. People is important. If your team members are not aligned with your vision as what you want your company to be. So I want my company to be quality, growth, and actually our mantra is growth through quality, right? That's our mantra. And so focusing on quality is critically important because the end customer, it could be something mission critical. And in our case, many of our military parts. So we've invested in the people before equipment, and then having them understand that this is the expectations. This is the culture we live in. This is the training that you need to have. And then the equipment, we're going to provide that to you so you can succeed, right, as an employee. And then never compromise on quality for growth, right? It's the other way around, right? So you're focused on quality, the growth will come, right? You have to be patient. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. But don't compromise quality for growth. So if you get a customer, the sweet little purchase order, and you're looking at, oh man, I could do this for the end of the month. Don't change your processes as a result of revenue, right? Focus on that quality because reputation is everything. It's extremely hard to regain a bad reputation, right? To reverse it, right? If you get a bad reputation, man, it takes a long time to reverse it. A good reputation takes work, daily work, every day on focusing on that quality. And
years,
I'd say. Don't let your guard down on that one. The other thing, Dean, is that every decision actually strengthens your culture. It doesn't weaken it. So it's not when you're making decisions, they're not neutral. So when you make a decision as an owner or as a member of the leadership team or even a team member, realize that whatever you're deciding has an impact, right? And so recognizing that responsibility is very important. That's why I was telling you before that it's a mindset. If you don't understand that what you're doing has an impact, then you're not part of Veterans Metal. And that's a key attribute in all our employees here.
Mm-hmm. And we have the same thing here. So we do have strong company values that we, hire against and promote against, and in some cases, terminate against the people that don't fall with our values, because we believe that they're going to help us and our customers reach their combined goals.
Yes.
Now, Andrew, just to wrap up here, I know we're at time. What are 2 or 3 takeaways from this conversation for listeners do you want to share, just to kind of put a nice little bow tie on the conversation?
Yeah, I think that it's important to realize that culture is a competitive advantage. It's not an HR initiative, right? And so recognizing that it's a differentiator between you and your competition is critically important. I can tell you when a customer comes to the door, they love us. They love talking to us. We know their names. We know their kids' names. We know that they just were on vacation. They know they just had surgery. So there is a culture of relationships with our customers that they love coming here. They enjoy coming. They love visiting here. They love when they arrive, we have some new piece of equipment. Hey, you want to see this new gear that we just got? And we show that to them because we're proud of it and they love that. So culture is a competitive advantage. It's not an HR initiative, number one. Number two, quality drives growth. Growth does not create quality. Okay. And so you have to accept that fact that without quality, growth is very hard. A lot of my competitions, they've been doing, they may have been around for 50 or 60 years. So they have this steady flow of work. The problem is it could change at any moment. Your end customer could decide, hey, I'm done. And then suddenly it's not there anymore. Right. So the default of, oh man, it's endless work. It's a poor mentality to have. You have to focus on the quality that's going to drive growth and not the other way around. And the third thing is technology should amplify good processes and great people and not replace them. Okay. So the technology we use today is all about amplifying their strengths. I'll give you one example. Just talking to my office manager yesterday and the office supervisor, saying, what feedback do we have for Steelhead on AIPO, right? So we have purchase orders that are automatically being filled by AI, right? And because we used to enter that manually. And so again, it's that mentality of that it amplifies what my people do and what my process exists do, but not replacing anybody. It's a matter of being more efficient and utilizing their talents.
Amazing. Well, Andrew, thanks for your time here. And I'd say thank you from inside of the Steelhead walls. You're somewhat of a hero to us in terms of you were the first NADCAP shop on Steelhead. And I think we appreciate all the work you're doing with the SBA and with the NADCAP organizations and moving those pretty big organizations forward in there, or help sharing your perspective with them to hopefully move those groups forward as well. So thanks for everything, Andrew. And we appreciate you as a customer and as a friend and a partner.
All my best to the Steelhead family.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
See you.